Hello 9Y4, this is Mrs. Musson. I hope you're all well. I just put together this really short video for you to have a look at sequences so we can have a look at the next step. So looking at the screen, you'll see here we've got one dot, then what's happened to this one, and then what has happened to this pattern here. So what would you expect the next one to look like? Okay, so you should have spotted that, well, this one, we've just got this extra one here and here. Okay, so we've added those on to make this pattern. So this one, what have we then done? Well, hang on, we've added on another one. So here and here. So you should have spotted that the next one, you would expect it to add on one on each end again, which here you can see it has. So it's added on one here and one here. Okay, so let's move on. So in your books or on a piece of paper, looking at this pattern here, what would the next pattern look like? So we can see here we've got 4 matchsticks and it's made up a square. On this second pattern here, we've added another 4 matchsticks. We've got another square. Now on this third pattern, we've added another square with 4 matchsticks. So what would we expect the next one to look like? So you would expect it to have another square, which would be another 4 matchsticks. So what are we doing every time to this? You could say we're adding a square, but to help us in going into the next one, what we would actually say is that we are adding 4 matchsticks here. Now we would have to say that as add. We must always use the operator. Okay, so we're adding 4. So that's how we would write that down. I'm going to show you that in a little bit more detail on the next slide. Okay, so we're looking at these numbers here. Now, each one of these is a term in our sequence. Now, what we're going to have a look at is what we call a term-to-term rule. So we're going from one term to the next term. So what have we done here to go from this term to this term here? Hopefully you've spotted that we've added 2. So what about here? We've added 2. So every time we're adding 2, we call this term-to-term rule add 2. Remember, we have to write it down as add 2 here, because we have to include the operator. You cannot just write 2, it must be add 2, because sometimes we might be subtracting 2 or multiplying by 2. That's why we always have to include the operator. So what would you expect a question to look like using a term-to-term rule? So this is a typical question from an exam. It's asking you to find the next 3 terms of this sequence here. So you've got 4, 7, 10, 13 and 16. Now there are 2 parts to this. Now the first part is you need to find out the difference between each term. So if we would ask for the term-to-term rule, we're looking at from one term to the next term. That would be your term-to-term rule. So if it uses that word, term-to-term, so term, okay, to term. It's really hard to write in this pen. So term-to-term. What would we say we've just done here? Well, we've added 3, okay? So we would say that our term-to-term rule, we would write add, I'm just going to write the plus sign there, 3. Okay, and you can see that happens every time. So from 7 to 10, we've added 3. From 10 to 13, we've added 3. So then the next part of the question asks you what the next 3, let me just clear the screen so it doesn't look too cluttered. What would be the next 3 terms? So we know that we're adding 3 each time. So 16 add 3 will give me my 19 here. Add 3 again will give me 22. Add 3 again will give me 25. Okay, go back into the form, complete the questions just to check that you've understood this and see how you get on.